Hello, listeners. Welcome to our English program Kaleidoscope. Listeners, in our today's program, we have a very interesting personality with us. His name is Nikhil Naren. He's from the field of law. He's an assistant professor in Jindal Global Law School, which is a very prestigious law school. His interest areas lie around the intersection of law and technology and its impact on the society. He has co-authored two books which are mainly Internet Law Regulating Cyberspace and Emerging Technologies. And the second book is Artificial Intelligence and Law Challenges Demystified. So, Nikhil, welcome
Thank you so very
to our
much.
All India Radio studio.
Thank you so.
So, Nikhil, please tell us something about you because you seem to be very young to be an assistant professor. And second thing, you have already co-authored two such important books, which the introductions have been given by the Chief Justices of India. So I find it very interesting, and I'm very interested to find out how did you begin?
So I have pursued my Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Laws from Symbiosis Law School, Noida,
Okay.
from the year 2015 to 2020.
Okay.
And one of the most important factors of my life has been meeting my mentor, Mr. Rodney D. Ryder, who happens to be an authority on the subject of information technology and intellectual property rights laws in India.
Okay.
He's himself a very accomplished author. And I still remember when I was at UPS Dehradun on September 1st and 2nd, they conducted an international conference on law and technology.
Okay.
And I, as a person, has been focusing on technology law since my very first year of my law school, very first semester. To the time when it was not such, a topic that would have come in the mainstream. When I happened to go at that conference, so Rodney sir was actually the guest panelist
Okay.
in that conference. He was the guest moderator, all the stardom that you get. And I was so, focusing on recollecting that where have I seen this name? And after some thoughts put in, I could recollect that my father's library has two books that were authored by him. One was on contract drafting and one was on right to information. And as normal people, we do get fascinated when we know, oh, this is the person who has written a book and he's right there. But along with that, there's another factor that is that how to approach. So one of the finest learnings of my life has been to meet and greet with strangers. Because that's the one shackle that we need to break
Yes.
to start a conversation. And I still remember that I skipped the lunch in that conference just to find that way to meet him. And we met. He gave me his business card. And that's how we got in touch. I have always been fascinated by his work. He has been a person who has been working in this field for like 25 years. And that's a pretty long time. And I interned with him for 4 months and eventually landed up receiving a pre-placement offer.
Wow.
In fact, when I was there in my law school at Symbiosis Noida, I was the youngest and the earliest to receive an offer in the 7th semester of my law school. Since then, I started working full time with Scribord, which is a law firm, advising clientele that ranged from big techs to startups, to Fortune 500 companies, so on and so forth, on Information Technology Act, intellectual property, contractual disputes, everything. And that's when the idea of coming up with a book on cyber law, as we say in common term, came in. But the idea was to come up with a book that becomes accessible for a layperson to understand what the law is.
Okay. So this
Because-
happened in 2020.
This happened in 2019, towards the end of 2018, in fact.
Okay.
And the entire 2019, we worked on the book. The book released in 2020.
Oh. So you
right.
still had to complete your course.
Yes, I had a year and a half
to go.
left at the law school to get the
That's
degree, to
interesting.
complete the course.
Yeah.
But by that time, I did get an exposure of actually working with advising companies and getting those insights. And as I mentioned, that it's very important that when you are writing on something that's dynamic, technology is very dynamic. It changes like every, a week, something new will come up. And the whole idea is that people who have worked on the ground, in policy making, in technology policy also, what we see is we seldom, go to those people who have actually faced the troubles, who have tested those waters. So us sitting in a library and researching on a topic, we might come up with a really good piece of literature.
Yes.
But that certainly cannot be so purposeful of regulating or framing policies that can create an impact on the entire ecosystem and the economy of the country. So the idea was to come up with a book that serves a purpose for layperson. And when we began working, I also had research associates with me who were assisting us. We gradually worked on the book. The book was released on 3rd of March 2020. That was right before the pandemic set in.
Oh.
And that book was forwarded by Shri Deepak Mishra ji, who's a former Chief Justice of India. And I was 23 at that point of time, still in my last semester of law school. And the second book actually draws an inference from the first book, because the 15th chapter of my first book was New Technologies and Law, where artificial intelligence was one of the subtopics. And when I was working on that, I did think that this is something that could be expanded upon. And the intersection is very interesting. India is building dialogues, and we have seen dialogues building up globally, but gradually India is keeping up and starting to talk about these implications. So when I started working on the second book, it was during the pandemic. Of course, I was at home. I had some time to work on book, and that's how the entire plan of researching, writing began. And that was the time. So I had no plans of pursuing my master's.
Okay.
And when I got to know about chevening, so when I got to know about chevening, I was like, okay, this is a scholarship where you get everything covered.
Okay.
Flight tickets, visa fee, NHS surcharges, your stay, you get stipend, your tuition fee is paid, everything got covered. Like, this is something that I should contest for. But all the more, the only reason that I was hesitant was the past awardees. So they were those people who had significant work experience, doing good things in their fields. And I was a little hesitant looking at, because I just completed my law school in 2020.
Right.
But even then, I thought of giving it a shot. The worst is that I don't get in.
Yeah.
But I made it in my first attempt. I'm one of the youngest awardees of that scholarship. And then I went on to pursue my Master of Laws, specializing in technology, media, telecommunications from Queen Mary University of London.
Okay.
When I went there, I had received opportunities to also put in my significant amount of work on research collaborations that was taking place. I assisted one of my professors, Christopher Millard, who has been one of significant figures in data protection law globally.
Okay.
I was assisting him in the cloud legal project that is funded by Microsoft, and that is one of the special projects that is run by Queen Mary. And simultaneously, I was also assisting on a pro bono basis an agri-tech startup based out of UK. For that, I was awarded a gold award by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, United Kingdom, in the chevening volunteering event. And I happened to be, I was representing India, of course, because we are one of the country's ambassadors there. So I was one of the 7 scholars to have received a gold award out of 1600. So that is it. That has been my journey. And the book was written while I was pursuing my studies, because I sent a draft of manuscript before leaving for the UK.
Yes.
But then there were some feedback and comments, so that I had to work upon. Then I expanded on those things while I was pursuing my master's. The book was released. I was able to get few copies of the book in London, present it to some very significant honorable people over there. And even Amish Tripathi ji has written a testimonial for the book. I happened to meet him in London from the layperson's perspective. So even I guess he found the book interesting, that how do we make the layperson understand the significance of new age technologies in the day-to-day lives. So this is my whole journey so far.
Yes, that's really interesting, Nikhil. I think our listeners who are still to graduate, they'll find it really interesting and really inspirational, because generally people wait for their graduation to be complete and then they want to do something in their life. But as you said that you started very young, in the second or third year you started writing it. So it can be an inspiration for many. And the first book that you talked about, the purpose is very interesting, I think.
Right. So our whole idea was to put forth our views on empowering people, and at the same point of time making them aware
Right.
of what are the laws, how to, in terms of companies, how to stay compliant with the laws of India, and significantly the harms
Okay.
that might be caused. So what happens in today's times, that because we feel that we have a smartphone in our pockets, we are all smart. But we are not smarter than the smartphone.
Right.
The only reason it being that it is being driven by some kind of technologies. And the other reason being that we find ourselves to be safely placed and guarded from the various clutches of law enforcements. To give you an example, and what I cite generally and naturally, what happens is, now if there is a case of eve teasing, like we are here sitting in All India Radio office, and if there was a person right across the street who tries to eve tease a girl, a female, the fear is much more and much more significant than, say, messaging that girl on social media.
Right.
Or maybe that message could be anything. But why? Because as people, as the users of technology, we feel that it's very difficult for law enforcement to catch us. You know, it will take them time, or we might get away with the shackles. Whereas on the former case, we have a fear that if I do something here, it might happen that the people around will start acting on it.
Yes.
So this fear is missing, and this is not a negative fear. This can be a positive fear as well, because the way we are perceiving technology and its day-to-day usage, we have to be significantly conscious about the fact that what we possess with ourselves all the time, it has some things to do with your day-to-day decision making. You will be surprised, as I've talked about in the second book actually,
Okay.
that how algorithms influences our decisions, our day-to-day decisions. I can force you to not buy a t-shirt from this place, but on the other place or other marketplace. This is all about algorithms and the age of digital media, digital technology, emerging technologies, so on and so forth.
Right. Very interesting. I think when you say the fear of the law, I think that lack of fear has led to that whole trolling industry, right, on social media.
Yes. So there are so many different facets to it.
Yeah.
Now, with technology, what even I have said a lot of times is that no matter how good a technology you bring, it will definitely be misconstrued and be used in a bad manner or in a bad way to do anything that's fraudulent. So whatever technology comes in, there's always a downside to it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's our consciousness. How do we keep ourselves in check while using these technologies that saves us?
Right.
For instance, an example that I give is using applications. We have an application for everything. But the whole idea is, any application that is developed, the entire app structure, the application will rest on your smartphone. It is there 24/7. Depending on the permissions that you give, it does a lot of things which you or I as users will not be aware of. If I have to book a ticket, I book a ticket. I can do that using incognito mode, using the particular airline's website.
Okay.
and book the ticket and get this done. But instead, we choose to have app on our phone
Right.
that sits on our phone all the time. Interestingly, one of my very close friends was sharing an incident where he booked a flight, and immediately 20 minutes later, application sent a notification that you have a flight to catch.
Right.
So would you like to take a ride? So do we actually know that these things are actually being executed on our permissions? And there is nothing called free consent. No matter how free your consent is, it might not be free for 10 purposes. It can be free for, say, 2 out of 10 purposes.
Right.
But it still can be misconstrued and be used for the other 8. So this is how the entire ecosystem works,
Right.
which have to be mindful of.
So, Nikhil, where does law come in to safeguard my rights when I'm using my mobile, or say the example that you rightly gave now? So where does the law come in? Like, for example, in America, they had put on stand Zuckerberg and all the major giants, and they were questioning them.
Yes.
So
The Senate hearing you're talking about.
Yes. So, like, where does law come in to safeguard our rights as individuals, as common people?
Right. So the purpose of law is to maintain a social order. As lawyers, we are social engineers. The problem is that what to do when there is no regulation in place. So there can be so many things. I'll share an example with you. That to date, we have, say for example, an Information Technology Act 2000 that was enacted in the year 2000.
Okay.
It also went through one amendment in 2008 where different sections were also inserted. Significantly, it was section 43A, section 72A, and there are different rules that have been made under the bigger purview of the Information Technology Act. The idea is that when we talk about law or absence of law, is it really an absence of law we are talking about, or is it really about the lack of awareness and lack of training given to the law enforcements to execute the laws that we have? AI is pretty different. Of course, it is something that we can say it's not tangible.
Yes.
But I know of some cases, and especially there have been cases like 2005 to 15, where even if there was a case of data leak, FIRs were registered under 379 of IPC.
Okay.
That's the section that gives punishment of theft. Whereas we do have provisions given under the IT Act.
Oh.
How to deal, because it's data theft.
Right.
So laws are there to serve purposes in certain situations, in certain scenarios. In other cases where there are absence of laws, we have to find a middle way where our policy making has to involve those stakeholders which are out there on the ground who are developing these applications.
Right.
It has to be a mix. This is what I believe in. That, see, law always catches up with technology. It will,
That's an
because,
interesting statement.
yes, because if technology is at point A, law is not there. By the time the law reaches point A, technology is at point F.
Oh.
Now the point is that we have to have something that with time evolves, because we do have ways to amend. Our constitution
Yes.
has been inspired by various constitutions. It underwent more than 100 amendments to date.
Right.
But it maintains a spirit. The amendments were necessary, of course. The changes were made, and we do have the law of the land in place.
Yes.
Technology, on the other hand, right now, when you gave an example of Mark Zuckerberg, there has been a debate. If I can take you a year back, when the IT rules of 2021 came in, there was a debate that sparked conversations around across India, where it did have provisions that mandated messaging platforms like WhatsApp to trace the first originator of the message.
Oh.
Right? So here, what you do have is a tryst with privacy and law enforcement. The bigger problem is that if you let go of encryption, that actually locks, secures the messaging between two people, and you give enforcements a key, okay, if something goes wrong, you go ahead, open the lock. See, we don't trust that whether this will be always used for lawful purposes.
Right.
And in Indian context, the only law, not a law actually, the judgment that we have that protects the right to privacy is K.S. Puttaswamy judgment that was rendered by the Honorable Supreme Court of India with a verdict of 9-0. All the 9 were in favor, no dissents. That privacy is a fundamental right. Comes within the purview of Article 21.
Yes.
But of course, it's not absolute. Now, you cannot give right to privacy to antisocial elements to carry out, say, a mob attack, mob lynching, do sorts of things. They can't you are violating our right to privacy. We were planning to do something that was antisocial. So, how do we balance these things? This is significantly a problem that we refer to as going dark. It is something that has been propagated in the West, in the US, not being talked about in India. That how do these law enforcements go ahead and, actually break down, solve the cases that they are finding very challenging to solve because of these new age technologies, encryptions, and so on and so forth. So this is the absence of law. And, if we have better laws or regulations coming in, that does have mandates of if X goes wrong, this is the resort that you have. Maybe after enactment, after putting that thing into effect, we do realize that this is a little bit not going on track, so we might have to amend it. And then we amend. The problem that India is facing currently is we are trying to solve 10 issues using one piece of law. And that is, personally speaking, might not be the best way forward in terms of regulating technology or regulating cyberspace. Because to regulate cyberspace, you have so many actors across borders. I can challenge you, name one case where a person sitting outside of India does anything and that person was extradited, came to India, punished, and has been behind bars or anything.
Yes.
It's very difficult.
Right.
So these are the challenges, and the absence of laws makes those challenges lasting. The point is, if we start acting on these challenges, not with the view of merely having discussions and deliberations, but actually creating an impact, solving issues, knowing what is lacking, that will come to know only after we start with something.
Right.
So this is my take on your question.
Okay. Nikhil, coming towards the conclusion, 2 questions. One is regarding the future of this field, like artificial intelligence in tandem with law. And the second question is your future plan regarding your maybe your third book, or what are you planning next?
Yeah. So, of course, for the future plan with respect to law and its shape that it takes in the years to come, especially artificial intelligence. And nowadays, we have so many stuffs going on, blockchains, cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
There are so many fintech startups coming in. So, it is good. No invention is bad. We seldom regret the invention of the wheel.
Right.
So, what AI essentially is capable of is we do not know. Because we'll reach a point of time when AI, whether or not AI can achieve sentience, complete human sentience, when it knows that what it is doing, what are the impact that can happen because of its actions.
Right.
So we don't know if we actually will reach that stage. We do not know that in future if the wars will happen using, tanks and guns. It might just happen online, cyber warfare.
Right.
We do not know that how various ways in which we are, using these technologies will be influencing our mindset, our decisions, our opinions, which has started to happen. We see something on our social media that, oh, this is so relatable, this actually aligns, and we just share it without thinking that that information might not be true.
Right.
And that can lead to cases of mob lynching,
Yes.
spread of fake news. So there are so many different aspects. There are goods also, there are bads also. That is the case with everything.
Yes.
So I think possibly the views of AI will be more and more in different avenues. In judiciary, of course, cars, we are already having some of it. In various ways in which these web platforms, these applications, they are operating. So anything that was repetitive
Okay.
might just get automated, and that's AI for you.
Right.
So this is the answer to the first question. The latter question is about my future
Right.
plans. So I've just joined, Jindal Global Law School as an assistant professor.
Okay.
And I'm off counsel at Scribboard, Advocates and Legal Consultants, New Delhi, which is Rodney Sir's firm. Of course, I would love to write more on the intersection of various technologies and law from the perspective of how it impacts and for the understanding of layperson. Because I believe that the very essence of law is that people understand it. They're aware of it, where we are heading. So these are some of the things that I have in mind. So let's see how that progresses.
Yes.
There's no commitment, but just like AI,
Right.
it sometimes can do anything what it likes.
Right.
So it might just be true with me also.
It was really interesting talking to you, Nikhil. Thank you
Likewise.
so much for coming to our studio, giving us your time, and chatting with us on this wonderful topic of artificial intelligence and law. I hope even our listeners enjoyed it. Off the mic, we were just chatting about how fun we will have over the next half an hour. But I'll just reframe it. We had fun at the cerebral level.
Yes,
So I hope that even our listeners will have fun listening to us. So thank you so much. This was really wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure.